Why did she hesitate at the doorway? The others didn't notice. They brushed past her, boots striking the concrete floor, rifles slung, eyes scanning briefing screens. But she lingered, just for a second, just enough for the cold draft from the hangar bay to slip against her collar and remind her this wasn't just another night. They thought it was. The whole base did. Routine patrol, extraction window, another name on another operations board, but she knew better. She stepped inside, the hum of projectors painting the dark room in pale blue. The ops officer pointed at the map, tracing grid lines. His tone clipped, practiced, already half detached from the human beings who would soon walk into that terrain. She didn't speak, she rarely did. Marksman right side ridge, you'll have Overwatch on the convoy. His finger jabbed toward her place on the digital overlay. A hillside that looked harmless in pixels but smelled of dust, damp earth, and old bones when you were really there. She nodded, just once. "Any questions?" the officer asked. The room stayed silent, men shifting weight, gloved hands tightening straps. The silence of soldiers who knew asking questions never changed the answers. But in her chest, one question burned, pressed against her ribs like it wanted to be spoken. Not about the mission, about him. The man she had promised she'd bring back. The man who hadn't returned last time. Her throat tightened. She clenched her jaw and stayed quiet. The world thought it was just another night. But for her, this was the night of truth. Outside, the air carried that pre-mission stillness. Engines idled low, blending with the echo of footsteps and clipped orders. She adjusted her rifle strap and walked toward the bird that would take them in. Metal, grease, faint jet fuel. It was a smell that never left you, no matter how many times you swore you quit this life. "Hey," a voice said softly. She turned. It was Tors, their comms tech, younger than the rest, eyes still carrying some kind of light. "You good?" She gave him the same half-smile she always did. A mask, he didn't need to know. None of them did. He shrugged, shifting the pack on his shoulders. "I swear, every time they throw us in, it feels like it's for nothing, like they don't even know what's out there." Her gaze held his for a second longer than usual. He was scared. Pretending not to be, but scared. She could tell by the way his fingers twitched against the strap. She remembered that feeling, first deployment, waiting for something you couldn't even imagine yet. "It's never for nothing," she said finally. Her voice was low, certain, but inside the words cracked. He nodded, as if clinging to her assurance, and walked on. She stayed behind, letting the shadows hug her shoulders for just a moment longer. Because there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The helicopter lifted, rotor wash tearing at the night air. Headsets crackled, words exchanged. But she sat in silence, helmet pressed against the vibration, eyes closed, counting the beats of her heart. 1, 2, 3. She tried to imagine her brother's voice again, his laugh. The way he used to say she didn't belong in this world, that she was too quiet, too thoughtful, too unwilling to shout her place in a room. He'd been the loud one, the strong one, the one everyone noticed. Until the day he was the one they left behind. Her fingers brushed the patch sewn inside her vest. His initials. The thread was worn, almost faded, but it was there, always there. Tonight she wasn't here for the mission. She was here for him. And nobody knew. They landed in silence, boots hitting soil damp from an earlier rain. The ridge loomed above them, darker than the sky. A hush fell over the team, broken only by clipped radio acknowledgments. She followed, keeping pace, her eyes adjusting to the moonlight carving the outline of the valley. Somewhere down there, the convoy they were sent to protect would crawl through. And somewhere in those shadows, men who wanted them dead were waiting. But she wasn't searching for them. Not yet. The climb to her position cut into her lungs. Every step up the loose gravel reminded her body what it meant to earn high ground. She didn't complain. She never did. She had learned long ago that silence wasn't weakness. Silence kept you alive. When she reached the crest, she dropped to her stomach, rifle extending forward, scope already sweeping. Her breath slowed. Her pulse steadied. The valley below stretched wide, black with pockets of shifting movement. She whispered into her mic, "Overwatch in position." The reply crackled, "Copy that, eyes open." "Always." She pulled the rifle closer, cheek pressed against the stock, and let her gaze sweep the horizon again. Patterns, shadows, any shape that didn't belong. And there it was. A flicker, not headlights, not stars, something else. A glint of glass, a reflection. She held her breath, waited, counted. Then saw him. Not her brother. A man with the same gait, the same shoulders. For one split, insane heartbeat, her mind screamed his name. But the scope sharpened and reality hit. It wasn't him. Just another fighter shifting his rifle, waiting in the darkness. Her finger brushed the trigger. She froze. The memory of her brother's last night rushed back, the one she hadn't been there for. The guilt she carried like lead in her bones. If she took the shot, she saved the convoy, saved her team, did her job. But if she waited, what would she find? Her chest tightened. Below, radios hissed, voices rising. The convoy was approaching. She inhaled slow, steady. The rifle steadied with her breath. She saw the man lift his weapon, aimed. She fired. The valley cracked open with the shot, echoing off the ridge, louder than her pulse, louder than her doubt. The man collapsed, a shadow folding into dirt. But it wasn't relief that hit her. It was silence, heavy. Because the night had only just begun, and the truth she was here for hadn't revealed itself. Not yet. Minutes stretched. The convoy rolled through. More shadows emerged. Her rifle barked again, then again, each shot precise, final. She felt each one in her chest, not as triumph, but as tally marks she could never erase. Her team moved below, sweeping, covering angles. She whispered coordinates, guiding them through blind corners. She was their unseen hand, their silent shield. But even as she worked, her eyes kept scanning, not just for threats, for something else. For him. And when the last truck passed and the valley returned to stillness, she stayed prone, refusing to exhale, refusing to move. Because deep inside, something told her, the real reason she was here hadn't shown itself yet. The world thought it was just another night. But for her, it was the night of truth. And the night was far from over. Why didn't she feel relief? The valley was quiet now. The convoy had slipped through, steel grinding against dirt, engines fatting into the dark horizon. The team below checked their sectors, clearing the path. Radios hummed with clipped acknowledgments, calm voices masking adrenaline. But inside her, nothing was calm. Her cheek still pressed against the stock, she searched the shadows for something she couldn't name. Her eyes burned, not from the wind, not from the scope's glass, but from the weight of what she wanted to find, and couldn't. She wanted his face to be there, just once, to tell her she wasn't too late. The radio crackled, Overwatch status. Her lips were dry, she pressed the mic. Stable, ridge secured. Copy, moving south sector. And that was it. The moment passed like all moments did in war, filed, logged, forgotten. But she couldn't forget, not tonight. She slid back from the ridge, crawling into the shallow dirt pocket she'd claimed as cover. The night wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. Why tonight? Why this place? Why this mission, of all the endless ones she'd walked through like a ghost? Because there was a rumor, just a whisper she'd overheard 3 nights ago. A name buried in enemy channels, a prisoner, alive. And the name wasn't just any name, it was his. Her brother. She hadn't told anyone, not command, not her team. Nobody, she couldn't, it wasn't official, it wasn't verified, it was just a rumor, but in her chest it wasn't rumor, it was hope. And hope was dangerous. Her hand brushed the faded initials inside her vest. JM, her eyes closed. She could almost hear his laugh. You're too quiet for this world. he used to tease. But quiet doesn't mean weak, just means you're the one who sees what others miss. She clung to that now, as the night pressed in. Below, the team regrouped. Shapes moved through the dark, shoulder to shoulder, rifles low. She recognized their silhouettes instantly. Ramirez, tall, broad, always first into a fight. Torres, lighter on his feet, nerves hidden in constant chatter when the silence got too loud. Singh, steady as stone, the kind of man who didn't need to speak for you to know he had your back. She envied that about them, their ability to exist in this chaos without being consumed. Or maybe they were consumed too, and just better at hiding it. Ridge, Ramirez's voice whispered into her earpiece, we're clear. Move when ready. She exhaled, copy shifting position. She rose from the dirt, legs stiff, and began the slow descent. Each step was careful, deliberate, boots finding their place among rocks that could betray her with one slip. She felt the weight of the night, heavier than her pack, heavier than the rifle across her chest. Halfway down, she paused. The valley stretched wide beneath her. From up here, the world looked small, fragile, and she wondered, did anyone else know how much truth could hide in the silence of a single night? When she reached the team, Torres handed her a canteen. His face was damp with sweat despite the cool air. Nice work up there. You saved our asses. She nodded, accepting the water but didn't drink. Her throat wasn't dry because of thirst. You okay? He asked again, softer this time. Her eyes lingered on his. He was young, still carrying a piece of innocence most of them had lost. She almost told him. Almost. But the words stuck like barbed wire. Fine, she said instead. He studied her a second longer, then shrugged it off, forcing a grin. Well, I don't know about you, but when this is over, I'm putting in for leave. Beach. Sun. Maybe somewhere nobody knows my name. She gave a faint smile. That's the dream. But her dream wasn't sun or beach. It was one face, one truth. And dreams like that didn't come easy. They pushed forward, the night swallowing their footsteps. Each mile pressed deeper into contested ground, each shadow holding its own secrets. Singh raised a hand, halt. The column froze. Through the darkness came a faint sound. Not vehicles, not gunfire, a voice, low, broken. A man speaking in a language half familiar, half foreign. She strained her ears, every sense sharpening. The words carried pain, like someone muttering through clenched teeth. Prisoner. Her pulse kicked. She glanced at Ramirez, who gave a slight nod. They spread out, rifles raised, moving toward the source. The shape emerged, two men dragging a third between them. The prisoner's head hung low, body limp but alive. His arms bound, his steps stumbling. She froze. Her heart slammed so hard she thought it would betray her with sound alone. It couldn't be, could it? Her scope wasn't with her now, but her eyes didn't need glass. She searched the prisoner's profile, the line of his jaw, the shape of his shoulders. For one unbearable moment, hope surged like fire through her veins. Her brother. She wanted to run, wanted to scream, wanted to tear through the night and rip him free. But her training locked her body still. Contact, Ramirez whispered. 2 guards, 1 restrained, orders. The radio crackled. Command's voice cut in. Stay clear, do not engage. Mission parameters don't cover detainees. Repeat, disengage. Her breath caught. No, 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 no. The team hesitated, eyes darting. Singh's jaw clenched. Torres muttered something under his breath. Ramirez looked at her. And in that look she knew, he sensed her conflict. She wanted to shout, wanted to tell them. That's him, that's my brother. But her throat burned shut. If she said it, the mission fractured. If she acted, everything collapsed. Her fists clenched, her nails dug into her palms. The men dragged the prisoner into the tree line, their shapes fading into black. And just like that, he was gone. The silence that followed wasn't just silence. It was a knife twisting into her chest. They moved on, What else could they do? Orders were orders, and she had stayed silent. Tor's chatter died down. Ramirez stayed at point, eyes hard, shoulders tight. Singh glanced at her once, a silent question in his gaze, but she gave nothing away. Inside, she was breaking. Every step forward felt like betrayal. Every breath tasted of ash. Because if that was him, if it truly was him, she had just let him be taken again. The world thought it was just another night, but for her, it was the night of truth. And truth was merciless. Hours later, they set up a temporary hold point, a ruined building half swallowed by vines and dust. The team rotated watch shifts. She sat against a cracked wall, rifle across her knees, staring at nothing. Sleep wouldn't come, not tonight. Her mind replayed the moment over and over, the bound figure, the way his shoulders slumped, the way his head hung. Was it him, or was hope blinding her? The faintest sound broke her spiral. Tor's sitting nearby, fiddling with a battered photo he kept tucked in his vest. A woman, a child. "You got someone waiting?" she asked softly. He looked up, surprised she'd spoken first. Then he nodded. "Yeah, my daughter, 6, smart as hell, doesn't even need me probably, but he trailed off, staring at the picture. "I just want to see her grow up, that's all." She swallowed, throat tight. "She's lucky." He chuckled bitterly. "Nah, she won't be if I don't make it back." The words sat heavy between them, the unspoken truth of every mission, the truth they all carried. She turned her gaze back to the night, the darkness pressing against broken windows. And in that silence, she whispered, too low for him to hear, "I just want to see him again." The words slipped out like a prayer. And prayers, she knew, didn't always get answered. But somewhere, deep in that night, a decision was taking shape inside her. Orders or not, mission or not, she couldn't walk away again. If her brother was alive, she would find him, even if it cost her everything. And she knew, when the moment came, she wouldn't hesitate. Not again. Why couldn't she shake the image? The way the prisoner's head sagged, the uneven drag of his feet. Every time she closed her eyes, it was there, burned behind her eyelids like a brand. The team moved with steady rhythm, boots crunching earth, rifles shifting, every man lost in his own silence. But her silence was different. It wasn't discipline. It was war inside her chest. Was it him, or was hope playing tricks on her again? She tightened her grip on her rifle. She hated hope. Hope was a knife that cut from the inside. But if it was him, then she couldn't stay still. Not this time. "Hold." Ramirez's hand went up. The column froze. His voice dropped low into the mic. "Thermal ahead, patrol, 4, maybe 5. She sank lower, eyes scanning the tree line. Shapes moved faint against the shadows. Quiet voices in a language she only half understood, the words rolling like gravel. "Enemy. Close." They crouched in silence, waiting for the patrol to pass. Breath held, every muscle ready. And that's when she heard it, faint but sharp. A cough, a muffled groan, the sound of someone being forced forward. Her pulse hammered. The patrol wasn't just a patrol, they were escorting. She leaned slightly, angling her sightline past Ramirez's shoulder. Her vision narrowed. There. Bound hands, a stumbling step, head bowed. Her lungs froze. It was him. She didn't need clearer light, didn't need a scope. The slope of the shoulders, the shape of the jaw, even broken, she would know him anywhere. Her brother alive. The air seemed to collapse around her. Her mind screamed, "Move, say something, do something." But Ramirez's voice cut through. "We let them pass. Stick to mission, copy." The team clicked acknowledgments one by one. Orders, discipline, routine. Her throat locked. If she broke silence, if she confessed, if she told them who that prisoner was, everything changed. The mission unraveled. Their lives shifted into risk they hadn't signed up for. And yet, she couldn't let him vanish again. Not twice. Her chest rose and fell, silent, frantic. She whispered into her mic, "I have a shot." Ramirez shot her a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "Negative. Do not engage. That's not our objective." Her finger rested on the trigger anyway. The world seemed to narrow to that single moment. Her scope, her brother, her breath against the stock. If she fired, the night exploded. If she stayed silent, he disappeared into it. Her heart cracked. She let the patrol pass. The silence that followed was worse than any firefight. But hours later, when they stopped to recheck maps, she pulled back, sliding behind a crumbling wall out of sight. She pressed her head into her hands, nails biting into her scalp. She had failed him again. Her mind raced. Options spun wild. Could she break away? Could she track the patrol alone? Could she find him before they moved him deeper into the unknown? Every scenario ended in risk, death, betrayal. But her brother's face drowned every warning. "You're too quiet for this world," he'd said once, laughing, "but you see things others don't." Well, she saw now, and she couldn't unsee it. "Hey," a voice whispered. She flinched, hands snapping to her rifle. Tor stood there, eyes wide, hands raised. "Easy, it's just me." She exhaled sharp, forcing her grip to relax. He studied her a second, then lowered his voice. "You looked like you were about to break. What's going on?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She wanted to tell him, wanted to unburden the weight crushing her chest. But if she told him, he'd be dragged into it too, and she couldn't do that. "Nothing," she said flatly. His eyes narrowed. "Bullshit." She glared at him. He shrugged, leaning against the wall. "Look, you don't have to tell me, but I know that look. You've got something burning a hole in you. Just don't let it eat you alive before the mission. Done, okay?" Her jaw clenched. She didn't reply. Tor sighed, pulling the battered photo of his daughter again. He thumbed the edges. "I can't afford to screw this up. I gotta make it back for her." She watched the tenderness in his face. The way war hadn't managed to strip that from him yet. And guilt stabbed her deeper, because her secret, her brother, might be the very thing that cost him that chance. She turned away, back toward the shadows. She couldn't drag him into this. Not him, not anyone. This was hers alone. The march resumed. Step after step, hour after hour, the night stretching long. Their destination was a comms relay, a key node their orders demanded they dismantle. Command's obsession with maps and lines and signals never cared about what moved in the dark between them. But she cared. Every step they took away from that patrol tore at her chest. She couldn't wait for orders, couldn't wait for another missed chance. When the moment came, she would move. And she would not hesitate. At dawn, the light cracked faint across the horizon, spilling gray into the shattered valley. The team settled into ruins overlooking the relay station, an ugly skeleton of towers, wires, and armed guards packing like wolves below. Ramirez spread the map. 2 entry points, we split. Sing Tors with me on the west. Marksman, you take the east. She nodded automatically, though her mind wasn't on the map. It was on the rumor, the prisoner, the patrol vanishing into the night. If the enemy was moving him, maybe he was here, maybe close. The thought electrified her veins. They moved into position, crawling through broken concrete, past rusted barrels and twisted rebar. She found her perch, rifle laid out, scope sweeping. Targets, guards, patrols, she marked them all, but her eyes hunted something else. And then her breath caught. At the far edge of the relay, near a shack half swallowed by weeds, a figure slumped against a post, bound hands, head low. Her chest tightened. Could it be? She dialed the scope, breath trembling. The image sharpened. Not him. Another prisoner, a stranger. Her stomach dropped. But if there was one prisoner here, maybe others. Maybe her brother wasn't far. She whispered coordinates into her mic. The team moved, silent, swift. Gunfire cracked, shouts erupted, the relay lit alive with chaos. She fired precise, covering Ramirez's team as they advanced. Each shot tore the silence apart. Each kill bought seconds. But her heart wasn't in the fight. Her heart was in the shadows, in the shack, in the possibility of what, or who, might be hidden deeper inside. "East sector clear," Singh's voice snapped. "Push inside." Ramirez barked orders. The team swept the compound, securing, searching. And then Ramirez's voice again, hard, clipped. "Negative on high-value targets. Prisoner secured. Move out." Her chest collapsed. She scanned again. No sign, no trace. Had she imagined it all? The rumor, the patrol, the face in the night. Was hope driving her blind? Tor's voice cut in. "Marksmen were good, time to exfil." She swallowed, her throat raw. "Copy," she whispered. But inside a storm raged. Because whether rumor or truth, she couldn't let it go. Not after seeing him. Not after knowing he might be alive. As they pulled back into the morning light, every step felt heavier. The mission was done, the orders complete. But hers was. Her truth waited somewhere in the shadows. And she would find it. Even if it killed her. Why did her boots feel heavier now? The ground wasn't any different. Same dirt, same gravel, same dust clinging to her throat. But each step weighed like it carried more than gear. It carried guilt. It carried truth. The relay station was behind them, left in smoldering ruin. Mission accomplished. Command would be satisfied. Reports filed. Lines on a map shifted. But none of that mattered to her. Because in the cracks of that mission, in the silence between orders, she had seen something more. Not proof, not confirmation, but possibility. And possibility was enough. The convoy rumbled low in the distance, their exfil point waiting hours away. But her eyes kept pulling back to the direction the patrol had taken the night before. Into the dark hills. Into the unknown. Ramirez raised his hand. The team halted. "We'll cut east, stay ahead of the terrain, keep it quiet." She nodded along with the rest, but her mind was already shifting. East wasn't where she needed to go. East took her away. Her brother wasn't east. Tors fell in step beside her as they moved. His pack bounced lightly, his voice soft, almost hesitant. "You've been different since last night." Her eyes flicked to him. "Different." He gave a faint grin, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Quieter, and that's saying something." She said nothing. "You saw something, didn't you?" he pressed. Her jaw tightened. She forced her gaze forward, steps even. He exhaled. "You don't have to tell me, but whatever it is, don't let it get us all killed, all right?" The words landed sharp, because wasn't that exactly the risk? Her secret wasn't just hers. If she pulled the thread, they all unraveled. But still the truth burned. By midday, the heat was rising, waves shimmering off rusted husks of old vehicles littering the valley floor. The team spread out, cautious, scanning for threats. She used the moment to drift, just slightly, a few paces wider than formation, angling her eyes toward the hills where she'd seen the prisoner vanish. Every instinct screamed at her to break away, to sprint into those hills, rifle tight, chase down the ghost of her brother. But breaking alone meant death. No, she needed them with her. And to keep them, she had to be careful, subtle, patient. She adjusted her mic. Movement, north slope, possible trail. Ramirez froze. "You got eyes." "Not clear," she lied, "just something off." Ramirez cursed under his breath, scanning with his binos. Nothing. He lowered them, glare cutting her way. But uncertainty was poison. He couldn't ignore it, not in this terrain. "All right," he muttered, "we check it." Her chest tightened with both guilt and relief. The team shifted course, into the hills, toward where she needed to go. And nobody knew the truth. The climb was brutal. The sun beat down, sweat slicking her neck under the collar. The rocks gave little footing, every step demanding balance focus. But she welcomed the burn in her legs. It kept her from drowning in her thoughts. Halfway up, Singh paused, scanning the ridgeline. "Fresh tracks," he murmured. "Boots, several." Ramirez crouched low, eyes narrowing. "Patrol." Singh nodded. "Within hours headed west." Her heart kicked. West, toward where they had dragged the prisoner. Ramirez grunted. "Fine, we'll shadow it, keep tight." And just like that, her lie had become truth. She swallowed hard, forcing her breathing steady. She had bent the mission, and nobody knew. By late afternoon, the hills swallowed them whole. Jagged ridges, sharp shadows, the kind of terrain where one wrong step could bury you forever. The trail twisted, narrowed, vanished, and reappeared. Singh read it like scripture, guiding them with quiet certainty. And then he stopped, raised a fist. Everyone froze. At the bend below, half hidden in brush, lay a camp, makeshift, abandoned hours ago. Still warm ashes in a fire pit, canteens, footprints, rope cuttings. She scanned the ground, and her pulse spiked. The rope fragments weren't just discarded, they were bindings. Her throat went dry. Her brother had been here. She knew it as surely as she knew her own breath. Ramirez cursed, scanning the horizon. "They're moving fast, we're behind." Torres exhaled sharply, wiping sweat from his brow. "So what? We're chasing shadows now." Ramirez shot him a look that shut him up, but she saw the doubt ripple through the team. She knelt by the rope, fingers brushing the fibers, still rough, still fresh. Her hands trembled before she curled them into fists. She whispered so only she could hear, "I'll find you." Then louder, steady, "They had a prisoner, this isn't shadows, we're close." Ramirez's eyes snapped to her, sharp, suspicious. "You seem awful sure of that," he muttered. Her heart skipped. Too much, she said, too much. But she kept her face cold, unreadable, just observation. He stared a beat longer, then grunted. "Fine, we push west." The team moved. And inside, she both hated and clung to the lie. Because it was working. As night fell, they dug into a ridgeline for cover. The air cooled, shadows stretching long across the valley. Ramirez set the watch. Singh first, then Torres, she took third. When the others settled, she lay awake, staring at the stars through broken clouds. Her mind spun with the image of the camp, the bindings, the prisoner's slumped head. It was real, he was real. She wasn't chasing ghosts anymore. But the guilt gnawed. She had led them here on a lie, put them all at risk. She glanced at Torres, asleep with his daughter's photo tucked tight against his chest. Singh, sitting silent, steady on watch. Ramirez, restless even in sleep, jaw tight. They deserved better. They deserved truth. But truth, she thought bitterly, was merciless. A soft crunch. Singh's head turned, she froze. Something moved at the base of the ridge. Shapes. Patrol. Her rifle was in her hands before her breath caught. Voices drifted up, quiet, careful, hunting. They were being tracked. Singh raised the alarm with a sharp whistle. The team snapped awake, weapons ready. The firefight erupted fast, shadows flashing muzzle fire, the valley cracking with thunder. She dropped two in quick shots, heart hammering. Tor's voice shouted coordinates. Ramirez cursed through the static, holding the line. But even as the chaos burned, her eyes caught something deeper in the dark. Another figure, restrained, shoved forward by guards trying to pull him clear of the fight. Her blood froze. It was him. Her brother. Alive. For a second, everything else disappeared. The gunfire, the shouting, the orders. The world narrowed to that single shape, stumbling, bound, fighting to breathe. She moved before thought. "Cover me," she shouted, breaking from cover. "Marksman, hold position," Ramirez barked. She didn't listen, couldn't. Bullets tore past as she sprinted downslope, rifle tight, every step a defiance of orders, of discipline, of everything drilled into her. Because this wasn't about the mission anymore. This was truth. And she was done waiting for permission to claim it. The slope was murder beneath her boots. Rocks broke loose, skidding out into the firefight below. Bullets screamed overhead, snapping past like wasps. But she didn't care. Her eyes locked on one thing only, the figure stumbling between guards, wrists bound, face sunken but unmistakable. Her brother. Ramirez's voice tore through the comms, harsh and furious. Marksman, fall back, that's an order. She ignored him. Her lungs burned, her body pushed beyond reason, but nothing could stop her now. Because he was there, alive. And if she hesitated, he wouldn't be. The enemy spotted her charge. Muzzle flashes erupted, dirt spitting up around her boots. She dropped to one knee, rifle snapping to her shoulder, squeezing off two fast shots. One guard spun down, the other staggered, dropping his grip on the prisoner. Her brother fell to his knees. She surged forward, heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. A shadow loomed in front of her, a fighter with a blade swinging wild. She blocked with her rifle, steel clashing against steel. Pain jolted through her arms. She kicked hard, sent him tumbling, then fired point-blank. The shot echoed like thunder. She spun, eyes searching. There he was, crawling, dragging himself free. Lena. Her name rasped, broken, but his, after all the years, after all the silence. She wanted to break, to collapse right there, but there was no time. Get up, she shouted, yanking him to his feet. His weight sagged against her, weak from captivity but alive. Alive. Behind her, chaos raged. Ramirez's curses filled the comms, Tor's rifle cracking, Singh's steady bursts holding the ridge. The team had no choice, they were covering her, even as she broke every rule, every line. She dragged her brother toward cover, every step agony, her body shielding his. Bullets chewed the rocks around them. Then an explosion ripped the night. The ground heaved, dust and fire rolled over them. Her ears rang, vision blurred. She clutched her brother tighter, shielding him as debris rained down. When the smoke cleared, enemy fighters were pulling back, dragging their wounded, melting into the hills, retreating. The fight was over. But the silence that followed was worse. She knelt in the dust, chest heaving, arms still locked around her brother. His breath rattled against her shoulder, but he was alive. She wanted to hold him forever. But footsteps crunched behind her. Ramirez. His shadow fell over her like a storm. His rifle lowered, his jaw clenched tight. What the hell was that? His voice was low, dangerous. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his eyes. Her brother stirred, lifting his head weakly. Ramirez's eyes flicked to him and froze. The resemblance was undeniable. Ramirez's face hardened further. Explain. The word was a knife. Her throat closed. Every excuse, every half-lie, every deflection she'd rehearsed, all of it crumbled now. Because here it was, truth, dragged into the open, bound and broken but breathing. She tightened her grip on her brother. Her voice shook, but she forced it out. He's my brother. The silence that followed was deafening. Tor stepped closer, face pale. Singh's eyes widened. Even through the haze of dust, the betrayal in their stares burned hotter than any gunfire. Ramirez's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ground. You led us here. You compromised the mission. You. I saved him, she snapped, voice cracking. You don't understand. Damn right I don't understand, Ramirez roared. We're soldiers, we follow orders. We don't gamble with lives for, he cut off, gesturing sharply at her brother. For family. Her brother coughed weakly, trying to speak. She held him tighter, shielding him from the words, from the judgment. But inside, guilt twisted like a blade. Because Ramirez wasn't wrong. She had betrayed them. The hike to shelter was the longest of her life. No one spoke. The silence was a wall. Even Tors, usually the first to crack a joke, walked stone-faced. Singh's eyes never left the trail ahead. Ramirez stayed close behind her, like a guard more than a captain. Her brother stumbled often, weak from captivity, but she refused to let him fall. Each time she braced him, bore his weight. But every time she looked up, she saw her team's faces. And in their eyes, she wasn't one of them anymore. She was the reason they were bleeding, the reason they'd risked everything. All for her. Night cloaked the valley when they found cover in a half-collapsed cave. A fire flickered low, shadows crawling along the stone. Her brother slept fitfully, curled against the wall. She sat beside him, hand resting on his shoulder, grounding herself in the simple truth of his breathing. But the rest of the team kept their distance. Ramirez sat opposite her, rifle across his knees, eyes never leaving her. His silence was heavier than shouting. Finally he spoke. "You should have told us." Her throat tightened. "And if I had, would you have let me come?" Ramirez's glare sharpened. "No, because this isn't about you. It never was." Her chest ached. She wanted to scream that it was about her, that it had always been about her brother, about family, about a truth bigger than orders. But looking at him, at all of them, she knew the damage was done. They would never trust her the same way again. And maybe they shouldn't. Later, Tors approached while Ramirez slept. His voice was low, cautious. "You risked all of us tonight." She braced for anger, for blame. But his eyes held something else, fear. "You better be right about him," Tors whispered, glancing at her brother. "Because if he's not worth what we gave up, if he's not what you say, Ramirez will bury you." She had no answer, only the weight of her brother's shallow breaths beside her. In the early hours her brother stirred. His eyes opened, hazy but alive. "Lena," his voice was a rasp, but the sound cracked something inside her. She grabbed his hand, squeezed tight. "I've got you, I'm here, you're safe." He coughed, tried to sit, pain racked his face. You shouldn't have." Tears stung her eyes. Don't say that." But he pressed, voice weak but insistent. "They'll come for me. They won't stop. You put them all in danger." Her heart clenched, because hearing it from him hurt worse than Ramirez's fury, worse than Tor's fear. Even her brother, saved, alive, knew the cost. And yet, when his hand tightened around hers, she knew she would do it all over again. Orders be damned. Truth was worth it, even if it left her standing alone. Why was it so quiet? The fire had burned down to coals. The cave walls glowed faint red, shadows breathing along the stone. Outside, the valley stretched wide and silent, but silence here was never safety. She knew that, Ramirez knew that, they all did. So why did the quiet feel so heavy, like it was pressing from inside, not out? Because no one had spoken to her since the fight. Her brother shifted against her shoulder, groaning faintly. Fever burned under his skin, his body too weak after months of captivity. She pressed a damp cloth to his forehead, eyes never leaving him, as if watching could keep him alive. But when she finally looked up, she saw the stairs. Tors, Singh, even Ramirez sitting against the wall, arms crossed tight, jaw locked. She wasn't their marksman anymore, not their teammate. She was the reason they were stuck in this cave with a wounded man, enemy patrols sweeping the hills, and no clean exfil plan. And they knew it. The radio crackled suddenly, static shattering the hush. Tors leaned forward, adjusting the dial. "Convoy compromised, casualties, enemy regrouping." The voice was faint, distant, but the words sank like stones. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. "They're sweeping the sector, they'll come for us." Her chest tightened. She looked down at her brother, his shallow breathing. Moving him would be hell, keeping him here would be suicide. "We can't stay," Singh said flatly. Ramirez's gaze cut to her. "Then we make a decision now." The words twisted her gut because she knew what he meant. Her brother wasn't just baggage, he was a liability. And in the cold math of survival, liabilities got left behind. Her voice broke the silence first. He knows things. All their eyes snapped to her. She forced herself to keep steady. They kept him alive for a reason. He's not just a prisoner, he's a source. He knows something they don't want us to have. Ramirez's jaw worked. You expect us to gamble our lives on a maybe. It's not a maybe, she pressed, fire creeping into her voice. He wouldn't have survived this long otherwise. They could have killed him a dozen times. They didn't. Torres shifted uneasily. What does he know? She hesitated, because the truth was she didn't know. Her brother stirred weakly, words scraping past his lips. Codes, routes, shipments, he coughed hard, his body shaking. They're planning more worse than before. His voice trailed off, but the fragments hung heavy in the air. Worse than before. Ramirez stared at him for a long moment, then looked back at her. His eyes were hard, but behind the steel was something else, calculation. He didn't trust her, but he couldn't ignore what her brother might carry. Finally, he growled, if we take him, he slows us down. If we leave him, they'll take him back. Either way, we're exposed. Singh's voice was low, certain. Then we move fast, no stops. Her brother moaned softly, too weak to even lift his head. Fast was impossible. Her heart hammered. She wanted to scream, to beg, to promise she could carry him herself if she had to. But she stayed silent, because the look in Ramirez's eyes told her the truth. Every step from here on out, she'd be fighting two wars, one against the enemy outside, one against the doubt inside her own team. They left the cave before dawn. The air was cold, heavy with fog that clung to the ridges. Every breath felt like glass in her lungs. She slung her brother's arm over her shoulders, bearing his weight. His steps dragged, his body trembling, but she refused to let him fall. Each stumble drew glares, each pause tense whispers. And every time she pressed on, jaw clenched, refusing to yield. Because losing him again wasn't an option. Not this time. Hours blurred. The trail wound steep and narrow, stones sliding underfoot. Distant echoes, boots, engines, gunfire, rolled through the valley like storm clouds chasing them. Contact within the hour, Singh muttered. Ramirez called for a halt, signaling cover. The team dropped low, rifles ready. She eased her brother against a rock, crouched close, scanning the ridge above. Torres slid beside her, voice low. Why didn't you tell us, before all this? Her throat tightened. She kept her eyes on the horizon. Because you would have said no. Torres studied her, lips pressed tight. You're right. He paused, then softer. But you put us in a corner we can't get out of. Ramirez will never forgive that. She swallowed hard, the words bitter but true. And yet, when her brother's head sagged against her shoulder, she knew she'd choose it again. Even if it damned her. The sound came sudden, shouts, engines too close. Move, Ramirez barked. The team bolted, sprinting down the narrow trail. She heaved her brother forward, lungs screaming, legs burning. Every muscle begged her to let go, to drop him and run. She didn't. The ridge erupted with fire. Bullets chewed stone, sparks spitting inches from her face. She dropped low, dragging him behind cover, rifle snapping up. Her scope found targets, shadows on the ridge, flashes of muzzle fire. She squeezed off 2 shots, precise, final. Torres fired beside her. Singh's bursts rattled the valley. But the enemy pressed harder, closer, pushing them down the trail. Her brother coughed blood, his voice raw. Leave me, you ca. No, she shouted, more desperate than she meant. Not again. Her hands shook as she reloaded, the memory of years ago crashing over her. The night she hadn't been there, the night he'd been taken. The guilt she'd carried into every mission since. She wouldn't fail him twice, even if it meant failing everyone else. Ramirez's voice cracked over comms. "They're hurting us, downhill trap." The truth hit like a blade. They weren't just chasing, they were steering. Her stomach dropped. Ramirez cursed, switching channels, barking for backup, but static answered, cut off, alone. The team exchanged quick, sharp looks. Fear tightened every jaw. And in that fear she saw it, the thought none of them dared speak. Her brother was the reason, the target, the bait. And as long as she held him up, they'd all be running blind into a noose. But night fell hard, fast. They collapsed into the cover of another rocky outcrop, chests heaving, bodies shaking with exhaustion. Ramirez paced, fury boiling just beneath the surface. "This ends now. We can't keep this up." Her brother shivered in her arms, whispering fragments, coordinates, numbers, phrases that made no sense but felt heavy, dangerous. Tor's glanced between them, his voice strained. "If he knows something real, if he can stop what's coming, then maybe." "Or maybe it's nothing," Ramirez cut in coldly. "Maybe we're bleeding for a man who should have stayed buried." Her heart lurched, but before she could answer, her brother's eyes fluttered open. "Not nothing," he rasped. His voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the cave like thunder. "They're moving, weapons, hidden routes, not for this war, for the next." Silence. Even Ramirez stilled. "The next war." Her brother coughed hard, blood flecking his lips, but his eyes locked on hers. You have to get me out, tell them, or it happens again." Her stomach turned cold. His words weren't just about survival, they were about something bigger, something coming. And for the first time, she saw it in Ramirez's eyes, the tiniest flicker of doubt. Maybe her betrayal hadn't damned them. Maybe it had saved them. But then outside, the valley lit with flares, dozens. Enemy voices rose in the dark, engines roared. They were surrounded. Ramirez's eyes met hers across the cave. "You wanted him alive," his voice was steel. "Then you better prove he's worth dying for." Her rifle felt suddenly heavier in her hands. Her brother's weight pressed harder into her arms. And in the echo of the flares, she knew. The night of truth had only just begun. Why did the flares have to burn so bright? They hissed in the sky, drifting down slow, spilling white fire across the valley. Every shadow vanished. Every rock face glared, and every path out of the cave was gone. Her brother stirred weakly in her arms, squinting against the light. The team crouched low, rifles ready, eyes scanning the ridgelines. Shapes moved in the glow, dozens, maybe more. Enemy fighters closing from every side. Torres swore under his breath. Singh checked his last magazine, lips pressed tight. And Ramirez didn't even flinch. He just looked at her. That stare cut deeper than any bullet. "You wanted him alive," Ramirez said, his voice a cold rasp. "Now prove he's worth all this." Her throat closed. Because there was no proving it. Not now. Not with fire falling around them and death circling closer every second. All she had was faith. And faith was the one thing soldiers were never trained to carry. The first shots cracked from the ridge. The cave spat dust and sparks as bullets chewed stone inches from their heads. "Return fire," Ramirez barked. The world erupted. Torres leaned into the entrance, rifle spitting fire. Singh dropped to his stomach, bursts of automatic fire lighting the night. Ramirez stepped forward, calm as iron, every shot measured, precise. She pressed her brother low against the wall, then swung her rifle up, scope catching shapes in the glow. One shot, two, three, shadows dropped. But more kept coming. The valley roared with engines now, trucks maybe armored. Lights slashed through the dust. They weren't just surrounded, they were outnumbered 10-1. Her heart hammered, breath ragged. And still her brother whispered at her side, words broken but urgent. "Don't let them take me, Yuka." She didn't need to ask why, she already knew. If they got him back, whatever truth he carried, Whatever war he'd warned of would vanish in silence, and everything they'd bled for would be for nothing. But Ramirez's voice cut through the storm. We hold as long as we can, then we break through. Tors shouted over the gunfire. Break through where? They've got us pinned from every side. Then we make a side, Ramirez snapped. Her rifle cracked again, another fighter falling. But even as she hit her marks, dread pooled in her gut. This wasn't a firefight, it was a siege. And sieges didn't end with survivors. Unless... Her gaze slid to her brother, pale, shaking, but alive. She felt it then, sharp and brutal, the thought she'd been avoiding since the moment she dragged him from that camp. Maybe she couldn't save them both. Her brother, her team. One choice. One life. And whichever she chose, the other would be lost. A rocket screamed overhead, slamming into the ridge above. The cave shook, stone cracking, dust choking the air. The entrance collapsed halfway, sealing them tighter in. Singh coughed hard, voice rough. We can't hold this much longer. Ramirez kicked debris clear, eyes burning. We're not dying in a hole. We cut out through the south face. Move. The team shifted, covering each other, firing through gaps in the stone. She hauled her brother up, slinging his arm over her shoulder, dragging him step by agonizing step. Every bullet felt closer, every blast closer still. And in her chest, her heart screamed louder than the war outside. You can't lose him again. Not again. The south face opened onto a steep drop, jagged rocks spilling into darkness. Enemy fighters swarmed the ridge opposite, gunfire carving sparks from the stone. It wasn't an exit, it was a death trap. Ramirez cursed, ducking behind cover. Options, give me options. Tor's voice cracked. We don't have any. Her brother sagged against her, whispering words she barely caught. Leave me, tell them, don't waste. No, she snapped, tears burning her eyes. Don't you dare say that. But inside, her chest tore in two. Because maybe he was right. Maybe saving him meant killing them all. A silence broke through the storm. Not outside, inside. Sorry. The realization fell heavy, steady, undeniable. She couldn't run from it anymore. The night of truth wasn't about finding him. It wasn't about saving him. It was about facing the choice she'd feared since the day he was taken. And now it stood in front of her, burning in flares and gunfire. Family or duty? Brother or team? Blood or oath? There was no middle ground. Her rifle felt like lead in her hands. Her brother's weight crushed her shoulders. Her team's eyes burned holes into her back. And in that moment she heard her brother's laugh again, the one from years ago before all this. Loud, bright, alive. The laugh of someone who'd always said she didn't belong in this life. That she was too quiet, too thoughtful, too unwilling to harden her heart. Maybe he'd been right. But maybe that was her strength. Her silence, her heart, her refusal to let go. She looked at him, at Ramirez, at the chaos outside. And she made her choice. The decision cut like a blade. She shoved her brother into cover, pressed her rifle into Ramirez's hands, and met his stunned stare. I'll hold them, she said, voice low but steady. Get him out. Ramirez's eyes widened. You're out of your damn mind. No time, she cut him off, fire in her chest. You know I'm right. He's the one they want. He's the one with the truth. If they take him back, all of this, everything was for nothing. Ramirez's jaw clenched, rage and refusal battling in his eyes. But then slowly he saw it. The truth. And he hated it. But he knew. Tor's voice broke, shaking. You can't. I can, she said, softer now. It's the only way. Her brother's eyes fluttered open, confusion, horror, pain all mixing there. Lena, no. She brushed his cheek, tears finally breaking free. I promised I wouldn't lose you again. And this time she wouldn't, even if it cost everything. She turned back toward the ridge, the flares still burning, the enemy still pressing. She steadied her rifle, breath slowing, heart finding a strange calm. Behind her, Ramirez barked orders, dragging the others, pulling her brother into the shadows, into escape. Ahead the night burned. She pressed her cheek to the stock, sighted the first target, and whispered to herself, "Not just another night." Her rifle cracked, the war swallowed her whole. And the choice was made. The echoes of her gunfire still chased them through the mountains. Every crack, every shout, every explosion. They tore through the night as Ramirez dragged the others forward, hauling her brother over jagged ground. "Keep moving," Ramirez snarled, voice ragged. "She's buying us time, don't waste it." But each of them stumbled, haunted by the sounds behind. Torres wiped at his face, tears mixing with dust. Singh carried the pack heavier than before, as if weight could anchor the grief clawing inside him. And her brother, half carried, half dragged, looked back with every step, his lips shaping her name like a wound he couldn't close. Lena. It wasn't just her choice anymore, it was theirs. They had to live with it. The ridge finally opened into a ravine, narrow but deep, the kind only locals or madmen would try to cross at night. Ramirez didn't hesitate. He lashed a rope, swung across, pulled the others over with iron will. Behind them the sky burned. The flares had finally guttered out, but the fire hadn't. Smoke smeared the stars, tracers cut the dark, explosions cracked the earth like thunder. And still somehow her rifle spoke. They could hear it, steady, measured, defiant. Every shot screamed, "I'm still here." Her brother stumbled hard, knees buckling, and Ramirez hauled him upright with brutal force. "On your feet," Ramirez growled. "She didn't give you her life so you could throw yours away crawling." The words struck deep, slicing into bone. But her brother's voice broke raw. "I never asked for this." "None of us ask," Ramirez snapped, shoving him forward. "We do, we carry, now walk." The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. Her brother walked. They reached the second ridge as dawn bled into the horizon, turning the sky pale and cruel. And that's when the gunfire stopped. All at once, the silence crashed harder than any blast. No more echoes, no more defiance. Just silence. Tor's legs buckled. Singh dropped to his knees. Her brother froze, staring back at the valley. She was gone. The truth no one wanted to name broke through them like glass. She was gone. Hours later they stumbled into the extraction zone, dust-caked, bloodied, hollow-eyed. The helicopter blades thundered overhead, throwing dirt and debris across the landing zone. A medic pulled her brother away, but he fought, shoving hands off him, rage and grief twisting his face. "Don't touch me, don't you understand what she did?" His voice cracked, tearing through the roar. The medic froze. Ramirez's shadow loomed behind him, face carved in stone. "She made a soldier's choice," Ramirez said, flat, final, "and we live with it, all of us." But even he couldn't hide the fracture in his voice. The flight out was a blur. Her brother sat hunched, head in his hands, whispering her name over and over. Torres stared at the floor, jaw clenched so hard his teeth bled. Singh clutched his rifle like it was the only thing keeping him upright. And Ramirez sat in silence, staring at the horizon, his hands shaking for the first time anyone had ever seen. They didn't look at each other, because if they did, they'd break. Back at base, the world spun on as if nothing had changed. Generators hummed, radios crackled, pilots joked near the mess hall. Life went on. But not for them. When they stepped off the bird, the silence followed. The commander strode out, barking for reports, for intel, for answers. Ramirez dropped the pack at his feet without a word. Inside, on torn and blood-stained pages, was everything. Maps, codes, names, the proof of the war their enemies were planning. It would save lives. It might even save nations. But it wouldn't save her. Nothing would. Her brother sat in the debriefing tent, refusing food, refusing rest. His hands trembled around the cup of untouched water. She didn't have to, he whispered, voice hollow. She didn't have to do it. Ramirez stood in the shadows, watching him. You're wrong, Ramirez said at last. Her brother looked up, eyes red. What the hell do you know about it? You're a soldier. You don't understand family. The words were knives. But Ramirez didn't flinch. I understand better than you, he said quietly. She made the one choice none of us wanted to make, and she made it for you. Don't you dare waste it. Her brother's face crumpled. He dropped his head into his hands. And for the first time, Ramirez let his own eyes close. Days passed. The intel unraveled a plot so vast it sent shockwaves through command. Strike teams mobilized. Borders shifted. Thousands who never knew her name lived because she had given hers. But in the barracks, in the empty cot beside theirs, the truth lingered. Lena was gone. Not just another soldier, not just another casualty. She had been the quiet one, the one nobody noticed, the one they underestimated. And in the end, she had been the one to change everything. Her brother stood alone at the edge of the airfield one night, staring at the stars. The air was cold. The engines in the hangar hummed low. He closed his eyes, hearing her voice again, soft, steady, not just another night. And he swore, quiet, fierce, unbreakable, that he would carry that truth. Not just for her, but because she deserved it. The world would never know her name, but they would live because of it. And that was enough. Maybe not for them, but for her. It had to be.